Hey, I'm Andrew Lloyd Fry, and this is an introduction to Bill Evans. So we're going to be talking about some broad strokes of his life, some things that are interesting about his music, and then if you're new to his music, 3 albums I recommend that you start with in your exploration. So I think I'm just right off the bat, I think a big thing that's different about him is his classical music background. So he went to college and he got a degree in piano and music education, and that just colors everything he did, and the way his touch, just some of the influences that came into his music that we'll talk about later. But right off the bat, I think that's like a big thing that sets his music apart. So after he finished college, he moves to New York. So this is 1955, and he starts, doing some gigs and some recordings. So he did his first album for Riverside, and it was dramatically unsuccessful. I think it was like 500 albums were sold or something like that. So this really important moment happened where he was playing a gig at the Village Vanguard, so the modern jazz quartet and him. So it's almost like he's like playing the intermission solo piano, and Miles Davis was there, and Miles Davis heard it and loved him. Like, I don't know if it was that day, but he asked him to join the band. So if you know much about Miles, he also studied at Juilliard. I've heard interviews with his family, and it's like he was listening to mostly classical music at his home, and I think there was this like common thread that he heard, and then also, if you know much about Miles, just like that slow ballad thing was specifically like in the 50s was like his sweet spot, and Bill Evans was like a perfect fit for that. So that was like a huge turning point for Bill. So a couple of things. He talked about that being this really big like confidence booster for him, because it's like, well, if Miles thinks I'm good enough, then I must actually be good. It also was, I think, I think he was in the band for about a year, so there was a lot of racial pressure. He was the only white member, and a lot of people were upset at Miles for hiring a white musician. And he's also in the band with Coltrane and Julian Cannonball Adderley. So I also think he obviously like didn't fully have, or just didn't have control over like the music, what was being played, and the tempos. So I think there was things in that were like totally in his zone, and things that weren't. So after a year, he left just to pursue making albums on his own as a leader. So that's when he established a trio with Scott LaFaro, and the drummer's name is escaping me right now. It'll come back to me. And this is, I need to tell you the drummer's name. Paul Motion. That's right, Paul Motion. So this is like his classic group, and it was a trio instead of a quartet or quintet. So I think it gave him the ability, number one, to have more control and more communication between. It's like a deeper conversation between 3 people instead of a more surface conversation, like a deeper musical conversation. So he left Miles's group and started recording more under his own name, and those were all on the Riverside label. Now, I think it was about a year after he left, Miles wanted him to come back for a recording date, and he did, and that was Kind of Blue. So he was actually like no longer a part of the working band, but Miles Davis wanted him for that album. And I made a video analysis about that album. I think Bill Evans is like a lot of the magic of that album. And there's a lot of factors that make that album so great, but his contribution, even in like co-writing the tunes, is really big. So he had that group with Scott LaFaro and Paul Motion, and they recorded these super iconic albums that I'm going to talk about in a minute at the Village Vanguard. And I feel like it was this new level that the group had achieved. So I think it was, I don't know how long they were there. It was multiple days that they were there, and they recorded a chunk of it. And tragically, 11 days after that event, Scott LaFaro was in a car accident and died. So he was a bass player. So for me personally, this period with that group, with those players, is definitely like the highlight time for me personally, for Bill Evans' music. So a couple things about his music, just like as a whole. I already kind of talked about like the classical influence. So, you know, Bill Evans talked about Bach and just like how important Bach was to him. He regularly played Bach, and I think I don't exactly know what it is, but there's something about the way he plays. It's like a little bit more legato, a little bit more smooth, where I think that just comes from like the classical technique. And it's not like a right or wrong that like he's playing it right and everyone else is playing it wrong, but it's definitely something that I enjoy about his playing. And it's a little less sharp and a little smoother, and it just feels like the notes are just, I don't quite know how to explain what that is, but I really like it. You hear things like Peace, Peace, which really reminds me of Eric Satie, the French composer. So yeah, I think the way he voiced chords, you definitely hear classical impressionism in there. So that's just a big piece of his music that's unique. I think another thing is he was not a super prolific composer, so he wrote tunes, but mostly he's just taking from the Great American Songbook. So I would say for me personally, I'm not like super connected to those tunes, and a lot of them just, I don't know, feel a little hokey or something like that. But when he plays them, they don't. So it's like this like sentimental kind of tune, but when he plays it, it's just good. He's just got the magic touch to kind of bring out the right things, and even in tunes that I don't personally prefer. Okay, so let's talk about a couple specific albums. The first one I wanted to talk about was everybody digs Bill Evans. So I think this is his second album as a leader, still on Riverside. Philly Joe Jones was on drums, which he was in Miles' band with him. And kind of surprising because like Bill Evans is like more like a soft, gentle player, and Philly Joe Jones is like an aggressive, loud, it's like he's kind of known for just like playing really loud. And I really like this album. It feels like there's a little more spark and a little more pep and a little faster and just like a little bit more aggressive than Bill Evans normally was. And I don't know that, I'm not quite sure how that lines up with him being in Miles' band. If that's where it's coming from. So like the opening track Minority is just like really snappy and in a way that like a lot of his music wasn't. So the other thing is I mentioned Peace, Peace, which is kind of this like proto-classical minimalist piece where you could analyze it different ways. It's also like proto-modal. So this was before Kind of Blue. And you could analyze it as 2 chords or 1 chord the whole time. But he was kind of like one of the first people to do that. It's a really beautiful piece. So that's the first one. The second one, this is kind of a 2-part. So these are the 2 albums that he recorded at the Village Vanguard with that classic band. So this is the first one that came out Sunday at the Village Vanguard. And this one was a little bit more, the idea was a little bit more featuring the bass player, Scott LaFaro, and tunes that he wrote or tunes that featured him a little bit more. That was like a little bit more like the kind of the thought behind it. And I don't know if they were always planning to do 2, if that was from the beginning. But then Waltz with Debbie is just other stuff from those recording dates. So those are 2 of like my all-time favorite jazz albums. And it's a little bit like Kind of Blue, actually, where it's jazz, but it's just this a little bit, it's just like this different emotional plane. Everything's a little bit slower, a little bit more relaxed, more of a slow burn, but just very beautiful. And just a really another notable thing with those 2 albums particularly is the interplay between the trio. So normally in jazz, the bass is just playing quarter notes. You know, it's just boom, 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 and it's maybe it's some variety in there, but it's like 80% of the time you're doing that, and you know everything else is on top of that. So it's like more of this like foundational bedrock is like the function. And when I listen to this album, it's like the rhythm is so broken up, and instead of the bass being this like foundational thing, the bass is like a conversational thing. So particularly between Bill and Scott, it's like they are talking to each other musically in this way that is really unique, and they're able to do it in a way that almost just, that sounds like a bad idea. That sounds like it would be like, I don't know, messy or not melodically clear. But I think they had played enough together, and they're both just like amazing musicians, that just hearing this conversation between them is just like super amazing. So yeah, those albums are super highly recommended. They're like albums that feel like hard to imagine someone not liking, which I'm sure there's plenty of people that don't, but it's just, it's like really listenable and really deep at the same time. All right, I hope you enjoy listening.